Hi, and welcome to this video where we're looking at some of the clips that were um, published earlier on Moodle for you guys to sort of work through, all each with a description of what the shot needed. In this case, the shot mentions that the flame needs to remain in color, but everything else needs to be black and white. So we're going to have a look at that. And what you'll find is there are multiple tools that will allow you to do these things. So you can decide, you can try different ones out, or you can decide which one, and decide which one you feel works best. So just keep that in mind, that it's not always a case of this tool will do it. Actually, you might have to try it a couple of times. So we're going to have a quick look at the waveform in vector scope, and it is actually stretching, so it looks like it's got some black areas sort of around here. So it is, and the flame obviously is very bright, so that's already at the top. So it is stretching across the full tonal range. Doesn't mean we're always happy with what we've got. You can see everything else in the background is kind of all squeezed in the middle. One of the reasons that's happening is because when you try to focus on, when you have something very bright in the image like this, it can wash out a lot of the detail in other areas. So it's actually quite a natural phenomenon when you're recording these types of shots. But that doesn't mean in post we can't sort of stretch that out a little bit if we want to, okay, and sort of see what we can do with the everything else within that image. So if we remember, when you're grading, it's a case of looking at these scopes, but also looking at the video image, and it's the three together that decide um, what you finish with. So just bear that in mind. That like I said, in this case, the recording was always going to have a sort of a flatter look to the background because it's about exposing for the flame. But in post, we can adjust that a bit. And so I've changed it a little bit to make it look like that. There's the original, so you can see the original, like I said, is slightly more washed out, and I've kind of just added a little bit more depth to that, but higher contrast, shall we say. So I'm going to move my scopes out of the way for now so we can have a look at some of these controls. Right, so like I said, we've got a few options. So for starters, for example, let's add a node. I could just use this node to select the flame, and that seems to have worked quite well. So if we have a look at this, there we go. So you can see that's not too bad at all. Okay, go around here. There we go. Make a selection. There we go. Let's have a look at that. And that's what I've got. So that's actually okay. But obviously I've selected the flame. So what I'm going to do is right click, add a node, and I was going to add an outside node. And this time what should happen is you can see the flame isn't selected, but everything else is. Okay. So the reason I've done that is so it's done the opposite of my selection now. And I could go in and say, so we've got saturation controls here, and I could just drop those down, and hopefully that means that the rest of the image is now black and white, but my flame is in color. Okay, so that's actually worked out quite well. Quite happy with that result. Yeah, so that's great. But I did mention earlier that there are multiple ways to do things, and you might find that one way doesn't work very well. So this is probably going to give me the I think one of the best results actually. But we're going to try another way anyway, just in case. Let's imagine it didn't work. What else could we do? I was about to delete the nodes. Why delete them, right? Just Control D. There you go, and you can turn them off instead. Oops. There we go. Okay, so they're still there, but they're turned off. So the only one that's being applied is my tonal range at the beginning. The reason I've done that is because, like I said, I'm going to try another way to do this. And if it doesn't work as well, I can always jump back to the other one. Okay, so just want to keep that on anyway. But here we go. So we're going to try a second way, which is we're going to go to curves. And if you remember, we had a whole bunch of curves here that you can change by clicking the little dots at the top. And it's called hue versus hue because it means you pick the hue of the object on this line, and then by adjusting it up and down, you're changing the color, the hue. Yeah, whereas here, if you select the color of the object, when you pull the areas up and down, you change the saturation. So if you pull it up more, it becomes more saturated. If you pull it down, it becomes less saturated. And so basically, if you have no saturation of color, you've got a black and white image. So what we're going to do is let's try that. So let's see if we can kind of find the area where the flame is probably around, the reds and the yellows. And then let's take everything else and just pull it down and see if we can just remove all the color from the image. Okay, might need a few more points. And so you can see it's not as easy with this one. Right, so it is starting to work. So it's not to remove it. The green is still there a little bit, unfortunately. Let's pull that down a bit, actually. Maybe just, there we go. So the flame is kind of right there. And you can see, so this is doing the same thing. Okay, and but it's not removing the color in the rest of the image as much. So just to show you, if I, there you go, there's the original image, there's the one I have now. So this is what I mean about, you can try different options. I probably should have tried this one first because it's not as successful, just to show that. I think part of the problem is this is encroaching on the green. So if I pull that in a little bit, those greens should start to disappear. But yeah, you can see at least how that works, because you might find yourself in a situation where the example I gave using the color picker doesn't work for you. So it's good to know what other options you've got. But yeah, in this case, so this is starting to do. There we go. It's sort of working. It has removed a lot of the color, but not to the extent I want. And in fact, it's removing a lot of it on the yellow as well, which is a little problematic for me. But again, you can see it's difficult to raise without bringing in those greens, which I don't want. So yeah, not as successful in this example, but it was worth a look. So in this case, I think the first example wins out. Okay, thanks for watching.